What's up, everybody? It's your boy. AKA Reed from Shameless Nerd. Today's video is about trying to define who we are and how that's actually a lot harder than you might think. If you end up liking this video, please consider giving it a little thumbs up and subscribing to the channel. It helps support doing what I love so much to do that I'm willing to get up early on a Sunday to write 4,000 words about identity when I just bought and modded a Nintendo 3DS. Like, do you realize that level of sacrifice? Do you realize how much I love this channel? You can also support the channel directly by becoming a member and joining these beautiful people on the screen right here. I just posted the first members only video, which you would get access to, in addition to the satisfaction of supporting a real person with feelings and a favorite color, making passion project content on a sea of AI slop on this Mr. Beastified wasteland of the internet that we now all exist in. You can also join the Shameless Nerd Discord at the link in the description, and you can email me with any questions, comments, concerns, or mental health diagnoses at readfromshamelessnerd@gmail.com. All right, let's get into it. Who are you? When asked this question, most of us would answer with our names. I am Reed, but that name is a concept. It is a four-letter word, in my case, that represents something. It's not really answering the question, who am I? You can answer this question relationally. I am a father, I'm a brother, I'm a loving partner, etc. You can answer it characteristically. I am a middle school English teacher, I'm a Pokemon fan, I am a musician. You can answer it idealistically. I'm a kind person, I'm a lover, and I'm a sinner. I play my music in the sun. You get the point. All of these are representative of something deeper, something cumulative. These are all aspects of who I consider myself to be, which complicates things even further. I'll get to that later. But none of these answers alone answers the question, who are you, by itself? And you might be thinking, oh, okay, cool, but that's just like semantic. Like, what's the point of caring about that? And if you're thinking that, first of all, why do you sound like a Hollister model? But also, I think there is a real value to trying to address this question in how thinking about it can make us better, more actualized people, and also shape the way we go about our lives day to day. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna talk about why this question, who are you, is so difficult to answer by talking about all the different selves that make up you. Some of these are philosophical ideas that have existed for a long time. Some of them are from modern psychology. Some of them are self-evident, but all of them are you, and you might not have ever thought about some of the implications here, some of which I think are quite funny. So first of all, there is the hierarchy of what I'm going to call the literal you. We'll knock this one out quickly because it's more so just like a framework than the others, like a lens through which you can view these others in a cool little observation. The others we'll go deeper into, but you have the literal individual self, the relational self, and the collective self, all of which are real and at times very different. The individual self is what we're going to spend most of the rest of this video talking about and breaking down into like different selves that exist within it, which is where I think this gets very interesting. But apart from that, we also have versions of ourselves that exist outside of our control or even our knowledge. And these are versions of us that exist in how we exist in the context of others. The ways our identities change, our roles change, and further, selves that exist in the observation and the minds of others independently. Your relational self being the you that exists in your relationships with individual other people in your lives. You are very different in the mind of your father than you are to your partner. At least, hopefully. So if your dad and your boyfriend switched bodies, who would you... But the individual self is really what we're concerned with here, and this is where things get really fun and weird and confusing, because there are at least 5 selves in here. First, and most simply, there is your physical self, which is... Well, shit, it's not that simple, is it? Because my physical self is surely not just my body, right? If I cut an arm off and replaced it with a prosthetic, I surely wouldn't consider myself not me anymore, nor would I consider that arm by itself to be me. But if I slowly replaced every part of my body with hypothetical magical prosthetics that you do that with, at some point, I wouldn't be me anymore, right? Am I my brain? If I took my brain out of my body and put it in a robot, would that be me? Or would that be a robot with my brain? Or even weirder, if I had made an exact clone of myself with the exact same memories and experiences and thought patterns and interests and all that, well, first of all, I would make out with myself for a little while, right? Like we can all admit that we would do that, right? But secondly, I would still feel like me, and the clone would also feel like me. So there is something else, not in our experiences in our brain, not our brains themselves, not our bodies themselves, that makes us us. And that's really weird because I don't know exactly what it is. But if we look past the existential panic that thinking about that too long might put me in, we can think about at least 4 other selves in here, all very different, sometimes at odds with each other even, all very important, and from whom we can learn something and improve ourselves, whoever the hell that is. So first of all, we have an innate self. This is something that I think is super weird and kind of inexplicable. There is a self at our core that somehow exists in the past, present, and future and knows everything and reveals itself to us as we continue to exist. It is very weird. What I mean by this is that there is an innate self inside me that does not like mushrooms. A self that is good at music. And I don't mean like singing or playing bass because those are skills that I've learned, but beneath that, there is a self that had an aptitude for music, as in was able to learn those skills. I didn't learn how to learn music. My innate self is a performer, sometimes annoyingly so. As in from the time I was 3 years old, I was allegedly putting on like magic shows for family. And there's one infamous one where I said, "Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, it's for my first perform. The first thing I'm gonna do is..." This quality in myself I didn't pursue. I was, as far as I know, like born this way. With all of these innate qualities, aptitudes, and likes and dislikes, quirks and foundational characteristics, and I don't even have access to all of this information. Like when people go through a breakup and they say, "Yeah, I just need to focus on myself for a while. I just have like a lot of learning about myself that I need to do." Like, you are yourself. Like, how do we have stuff about ourselves that we have to learn? How do I not already know that? How do I not know that I like A or B or C, or that I have a propensity to whatever, or that I'm in constant pursuit of attention in a way that I often don't really even like about myself, for example? The innate self is often dragging us in a certain direction, and it's absolutely wild because we often don't even know why. How the hell is there like a secret agent version of myself living inside of me who likes coconut flavored things but doesn't like actual coconut? Why is he like that? And beyond the innate self, if we take a step out a little bit, we have the experiential self. This is similarly a self that we do not have control of. And it's also really weird because the more you think about this stuff, the more you think like, oh God, am I in control of anything? Am I just operating on instinct or whatever? And the answer is
yes, free will is a lie. This is a simulation. I am your overlord, ruler, Glogorthrax, and you...
Don't worry, the last 2 we can control. But your experiential self is the you that exists for about 3 seconds at a time. And this self is just in the moment, experiencing the human sensations of touch, taste, sight, smell, hearing, and having immediate reactions to that, in addition to experiencing bodily sensations like hunger, fatigue, sexual arousal, etc. And the experiential self is truly entirely out of our control. I wish I liked being outside during the summer, like chilling in the sun or whatever. And even though I want to like that, I walk outside in the 90-degree, sticky, wet, maple syrup-ass heat of the southeast United States where I live, and in that moment, I am entirely at the mercy of my experiential self, who is immediately like, "Are you trying to kill us? This is hot. Like, do you not realize it's hot?" Your experiential self is reactive. It gets there first, and we can't really do much about it. When someone says something mean to you, you will immediately feel sad or angry or excited if you're into that sort of thing. And that is out of your control. What we then have is the next layer, the like observational self, which also exists and exists completely separately, which is so weird and so confusing. But like when that person says the mean thing to you, first you feel angry, and then you become conscious of the fact that you feel angry. You observe this phenomenon taking place. And that is just ew. Like how many people are up here? Your observational or observing self is the first layer of real consciousness, in my opinion. It is like the lowest rung of metacognition. A dog can get sad, but I don't think the dog is aware that it is sad. I think it's just sad because I left the house for 14 seconds to take the trash out. Like, dude, I'm coming right back. I do this every day. You're gonna be fine. The observing self is where you want to be when you're like meditating, for example. If you've ever done a guided meditation or something like that, what you're trying to do is put the observing self in charge. The experiential self notices that you hear your neighbor's weed whacker at 7 in the morning. But in a real meditative state, your observing self gets to the perception first. It like supersedes the experiential self. You just sit for a moment in the observation of this perception, and then if you can ever actually get there, and I try, but I often really struggle to ever do so, you just let that observation go. That's all that meditation is. What's really weird about the observational self is the fact that when you sit still, you often become aware of your thoughts. Like, your thoughts are happening. You're not thinking them. And meditation is grabbing one of those thoughts as it like ventures into your observational range and then letting go. It's like merging your experiential and observing self, living in the observing self without ever allowing yourself to get to the next layer of self, which we're going to talk about now. And that is your narrative self. Your narrative self is the most complex, the most interesting to me, and the one over which we have the most control. The narrative self sits in an armchair at the back of your brain and asks, but why? To illustrate, right now, experientially, I feel a little hot. I feel stuff touching my body in a whole bunch of places, and I feel a little hollow sensation in my stomach. My observational self knows that I'm hot because it's hot in here, and that's making my body hotter. The stuff touching my body is the clothes and the chair I'm sitting on, and that sensation in my stomach is hunger. The innate self loves pizza. So the experiential self starts salivating as a wisp of a thought of pizza floats up to my observational self. But then the narrative self jumps in and says, guys, we said we're going to eat a salad for lunch. And then all the other selves go, I don't want a salad, I want pizza. And they cry because they're whiny little wimps. Your narrative self is the story you tell yourself about yourself, as well as the narrator telling yourself the story about yourself. Got it? A good way of thinking about one aspect of the narrative self is thinking of it as the self of desires, while the other selves combine to be the self of wants. I have a real desire to be healthy. I desire to work out and to eat a balanced diet of fewer fried cheeses and shit, but I often want to eat at Wendy's. And in the moment, because it's the moment, my narrative self can often lose to the other selves. I mean, he's outnumbered 3-1. And I often find myself eating a burger. It is deeply interesting to me, and maybe the most like eye-opening thing about this whole thought process, the separation of selves or whatever, the following scenario and question. If I want to be someone who is prolific, for example, someone who creates things, someone who is always working hard on things that he's passionate about, and that is something deeply important to me, something that literally makes up a big part of the identity I have for myself, why am I sitting on the couch eating Cheetos? Who is in charge up here? How can I want to do something and not do it? I'm me, right? I want to save money. Why did I just spend $119 on a Nintendo 3DS? How is that possible? And another thing I think is super interesting when you think about yourself this way is the way that your narrative self is also powerlessly reflective. I'm sure this situation will feel familiar to many of you. It certainly does for me. I will often lie awake at night at the end of the day and think, oh God, why did I say that? Ew, that was so embarrassing. I can't believe I reacted that way. Of course he didn't mean it that way. Why did I get so offended? Or why did I talk to that person at work for 30 minutes about getting rid of social media? She's 66. She's not going to get off Facebook. I think boomers are like legally required to stay on Facebook. Or on the other side of this coin, man, that was nice today. I really liked how I gave those kids $10 at the lemonade stand. That was a cool thing to do, or whatever. And I'll lie awake cataloging my day and my experiences and filing them away as positive or negative, thinking about either how I let myself do that thing or how I'm happy I did that thing. How these experiences I've had throughout my life correlate to the overarching story I tell myself about who I am, who I want to be, how I want to show up in life to the people around me, the qualities that I have that are good and I want to nurture, or the ones that I think are bad and I want to mitigate. And that's so weird because it's me doing those things. My narrative self thinks that for some reason he's the ultimate authority on all things Reed, but it sure seems that at the end of the night, he's like just a secretary putting things into a file cabinet. In closing, the value of looking at yourself in this way, of thinking about these different versions of yourself that operate on a day-to-day basis, is giving your narrative self more power. If we can be aware, like, oh, there goes my experiential self ripping his pants again, or whatever, then we can build metacognition, that pattern recognition that empowers our narrative selves to step in and right the ship when we become aware of ourselves falling into the traps we now know we tend to fall into. Also, I just think it's fun. Thanks for watching. See you next time. In today's post-video video, I'm going to give y'all a tour of the cool new shit I've done to the studio. I have a video on how I turned this storage shed into the studio I use for all of my music and gaming and YouTube stuff. You can watch that here. I think it's actually a really fun video that didn't get picked up by the algorithm or whatever. But in recent days, I've made it even more cozy and cool in here by doing a few things. So I'm going to take you guys over there, and I'm going to talk about my collection of video game stuff and what I've done with the place, basically.
What's up? I'm over here on the east side of the studio, and
I think I'm going to start doing this. I'm going to start like moving the location that I'm filming around in. Hopefully the mic sounds similar. I guess we'll have to see in post. But basically, I wanted to brag about this thing that I built. So I built this table, or like entertainment center, or whatever you want to call it. And the cool thing about this is I built it specifically to house all of my consoles that I have, and even more specifically, to do so in a way that all of them are accessible at the same time. And they're all actually plugged in and operational at the same time as well. And I've hidden all of the cables pretty well with a bunch of shit that I had to do behind that was really hard. But I built this in a way that it like hides, that it has like a section in the back where there's just like a mess of cables all kind of routed and hidden, which is another thing that I think is pretty cool. So this is my my other Switch dock. I got the OLED Switch. My girlfriend actually threw away my Nintendo Switch that I had since launch by accident. It's not her fault. It's a story for another time. But yeah, she threw it away. And so about like maybe 2 months later, because she felt so bad, she bought me an OLED Switch, the newer one, at the time. And so this is my dock for the old one. So I have a dock inside, and this is my original one. But then the Wii U and the Wii U gamepad charges up here. This is the Xbox Series X. Yeah, I like the Xbox, okay? I like it. Okay, is that a problem? Does that bother you that I'm not a PlayStation guy? Oh, does it bother you that I used to have an iPhone, that I didn't have an Android? Does that bother you? Are you so bothered? And PS4, Xbox One, which actually this is not plugged in. The Xbox One is not plugged in because I don't really need it. I just have it down there for display because it fits in the crate perfectly. The Wii, which I jailbroke and have like a bunch of cool stuff on it. And then the Xbox, original Xbox, which I just got, which I'm very excited about. I got the original Halo and Halo 2 and what else did I get? I need to get Morrowind, but then I have the Star Wars Battlefront 2, and then I have my 2 GameCubes down here, which actually, I lied again. The GameCubes are not plugged in either because I have the Wii plugged in. It's just easier. But I have the GameCubes on display down there, and then PS2 down there in the corner. This TV is from 2006. My dad gave it to me. It was like $4,000 at the time in 2006. It was like the most expensive thing that we had in the house. And my dad like saved up for it for like 2 years or something. He was like, I'm going to buy the best TV, whatever. And it still works. We are fast approaching the 20th anniversary or the 20th birthday of this Samsung TV, which I love. It weighs about 450 pounds. I have it mounted on the wall like with bolts that are like this big. Into the studs of the wall there, and it was a huge bitch. And I never want to have to do that again, but it looks pretty cool floating up there like that. I have the little like cable hiding thing right here. But yeah, so that's that. Some of the things that I did to the studio are I put little wallpaper on these little white things. I built this like enclosure out of leftover drywall when I built the place, so I made that look a little bit nicer. Obviously, I painted everything green. I don't know how I didn't mention that yet. But I did these 2 walls green, and then I did those 2 walls blue. And the reason I did that is because I wanted that side of the room where I have all like the electronics and like I do the video stuff, and I'm looking at like the like more tedious stuff, like my computer stuff, to be more like open and like light and kind of airy feeling, ideally. Same thing with where the couch is and like the little daybed. So like if you're laying down, it like feels cool and airy over there with the wall behind you. And then I wanted this side to feel very cozy. And I think it worked. Like I think that was a good idea. I think I'm a genius. And I also did trim. I'd never had trim. I just had the drywall butting up to like the drywall on the ceiling. And so I put trim up the other day. And that was way more of a bitch than I thought it would be. But yeah. So if you're interested in like how I made this space, because I mean this was it was a shed. It was a storage shed. If you're interested in that at all, I have that video. I'll put it in the description too if you missed the card, and you can watch that about how I did it. Like I wired all the outlets. I did everything myself. So, and I don't know how to do shit. I don't know how to do anything. I can barely get dressed in the morning. So yeah. Love you guys. Bye.